Hello all and welcome back. I hope everyone is doing really well. Lots of news to cover again today as we have had a landmark moment finally achieved for the cryptocurrency space. Of course, that being the SEC approval has finally been committed for all of the spot Bitcoin ETFs that we had been seeing rumours for the last probably upwards of nearly 12 months. It's a complete culmination of that going live. Let's take a quick look at what's actually happened here. So breaking news yesterday was the SEC officially approved all of the spot Bitcoin ETFs from various different fund and ETF management institutions: Van Eck, Bitwise, Fidelity, Franklin, Valkyrie, Hashdex, ARK Invest, Grayscale, BlackRock, WisdomTree, as well as Invesco Galaxy. Of course, this being a landmark occasion, we'll be taking a look at why in just a bit more detail. For any of those of you though that are based in the United States, trading should be going live today as of the US market open, and here are a list of the different tickers under which these ETFs will be going live, as well as their fees. As we can see there at the bottom, Grayscale clearly didn't get the memo in terms of where the fees were heading in that direction. 1.5%, various different tickers from BRRR to HODL to EZ Bitcoin to BitB and BTCO, IBIT, and I think there's also a DeFi ticker. There's another ETF somewhere. We can see the lowest fees potentially being as low as 0.24% for Bitwise, and Van Eck, HODL's one, being at 0.25%. The brackets are fees being waived at a lower rate for the first 6 months and or $1 billion in assets. But of course, that'll be available to all of those persons based in America as of today. The reason this being incredibly important for a landmark moment though is we can see different bits of information like this. Majority of us probably have noticed that the cryptocurrency market has picked up again over the last 24 hours as a result of this news going live, but this is just the beginning. We've got Bloomberg predicting $4 billion in spot Bitcoin ETF inflows on the first day of trading, with the possibility of $2 billion of that coming directly from BlackRock themselves. I did do a dedicated video a couple of weeks ago, I think it was, potentially it was in December of last year, looking at how actually we've got a disparate correlation or movement between Bitcoin spot buys and the impact on price, i.e. it's not one-to-one. If we see a 4 billion inflow into Bitcoin's market cap directly, that could actually translate from somewhere from a 3 to 10x in terms of the market cap adjustment of Bitcoin. So we see 4 billion flow into the market cap from spot orders via the ETF Demand, and potentially that could be as high as 40 billion reflected in the market cap of Bitcoin. So there is an outweighted movement in terms of spot activity for Bitcoin's market cap. Of course, that works in the inverse as well. If there's $3 billion worth of sales, we could see Bitcoin fall. This, of course, also has another impact in terms of what it does to supply. If we think about how these ETF and fund managers are effectively going to be amassing very large amounts of spot coins, or just literally BTF tokens or coins directly, of course, that is taking the supply out of the active circulating supply in terms of what can be traded for liquidity purposes. And therefore, we could see even more increased sort of volatility, particularly in the short term, because there is just less Bitcoin to go around to facilitate trades, etc., on a lot of the centralized and decentralized exchanges. As I mentioned, taking a quick look at crypto bubble, it's been a while since I featured this on the channel, but we can see majority of the crypto space, well actually nearly everything within the top 100 is green, with some very large percentage point figures towards the upside. We see Ethereum Classic there nearly up 50%, ADA or Cardano up 16%, ENS 42%, even things like the Binance Smart Chain up 5%, Cake 11%, and we see HBAR down here at 9%. On the daily, we were plus 3% for Bitcoin, and that's turned into already nearly 9% on the weekly. Now, something that must be said, if Bitcoin begins to rally, we've seen this before with previous sort of bull runs, particularly as we approach things like the halving, Bitcoin will effectively suck liquidity out of the cryptocurrency space. So we could see majority of these top tier altcoins begin to bleed out against Bitcoin as everything effectively funnels in as Bitcoin looks to achieve a new all-time high. That's what we've seen in the past during previous cycles. Of course, history doesn't always repeat, but it is a pretty good indication of what we're likely to expect going forward into the future. Therefore, it goes without saying, we could see altcoins stem their rally very, very shortly as Bitcoin begins to take off. Again, that could be completely different this time, and it could buck the trend. However, we do tend to see this happen time and time again. Cool, so that was all the news then regarding Bitcoin. Let's take a quick look at Hadera, as again, there's been some new sort of milestone events. We've got SourceSwap Labs, a new all-time high in weekly volume again on Hadera DeFi took place. Extraordinary new record in Hadera DeFi with a weekly trading volume of 37 million, roughly $230,000. The Hadera token service economy is taking off at full speed, and that continues to ramp up as we're seeing more and more equity flow into the DeFi scene on Hadera. Big congratulations to Novik Tech on the great step forward in scaling climate action in the Hadera Guardian ecosystem. So Novik Tech were thrilled to share some fantastic news as they got awarded the Google Cloud Ready Sustainability designation, of course, from Google. Our partnership with Google Cloud is a clear indication of the tremendous value and potential of the Carbon Central. Of course, these guys being part of the Hadera Guardian ecosystem, which again, many dedicated videos on. Something that went kind of viral via CoinDesk actually was picking up on a project that's been around on Hadera for a long, long time, and that is Tune FM Official. They've just received $20 million in capital funding from alternative investment group LDA Capital to advance its goals of helping musicians earning a greater share of royalties from their work, by Jamie Crawley CD. Of course, Tune FM Official being built directly on Hadera itself. The tokens Jam are actually available as a HTS token and can be purchased via the likes of SourceSwap. And it's nice to see that they are receiving external funding and actually have had quite a large shout out on CoinDesk. It drives more attention towards the projects that are being built on top of Hadera. Some interesting tweets I've seen, lots of different images. Ray wasn't the only one to post this as well, but one that I did catch. We've seen the Hadera mainnet, of course, TPS drop off recently. There was a mainnet upgrade a couple of days ago. It looks like Atma probably is ramping up. This is no new news. We've seen this before. Atma tends to run at very high throughputs for a considerable amount of time. It dies back and then they ramp back up. But more interestingly is looking at that Hadera testnet figure of approaching nearly 40,000 transactions per second. So something very, very large, or a series of very, very large projects are currently being tested on the Hadera testnet. And this isn't the only screenshot. Like I said, this is probably one of the highest figures I saw, but anything varying from north of 10,000 towards 40,000 transactions per second have been seen several times on the Hadera testnet. Again, could be several different use cases or another very, very large single use case similar to the likes of Atma.io. So there's some positivity to look towards there in terms of enterprise scale use cases potentially coming to Hadera very, very soon. One of the big things we saw out of the last week or so on Hadera, though, was this new launch of a standard effectively by Patches. Of course, should need no introduction to anyone that's familiar with Hadera, but intro of HCS20, also known as Hashinals, or kind of a Hadera equivalent of Bitcoin's ordinals. HCS20 was inspired by the BRC20 and Ordinals project, leveraging the Hadera consensus service to document the deploy, mint, transfer, and burn of HCS20s. So how does this kind of work? Well, the HCS20 standard on Hadera offers significant benefits for applications managing things like point systems. Now, this is very interesting as well because we've looked at previous sort of enterprise or institutional grade use cases on Hadera, things like the Coupon Bureau, where they have the potential to look at things like vouchers and point redemptions, etc. Well, this is a new way to effectively manage a system like that using this new HCS20 standard developed by Patches. You've got things like transparency and auditability. Every transaction, mint, burn, and transfer is recorded on Hadera, creating an audit trail, and it makes use of Hadera topic IDs to take advantage of this. Efficiency, of course, Hadera's high throughput and low fees make it cost effective for managing point systems. You've got the versatility in that it's suitable for various applications, from loyalty programs to gaming points to public mints. Flexibility and control, depending on the mode, it can be adapted for private control or public transparency. i.e. it can serve multiple different functions there depending on the use case. And this standard facilitates a more efficient, secure and transparent way of handling points, making it valuable for modern digital applications. If we scroll down and actually take a look more at this thread though, it's a standard effectively using Hadera's consensus service, which is of course fully native and singular to Hadera itself, topic IDs to record these transactions. It's ideal for applications needing transparency and audits for point management or users wanting to inscribe on Hadera. Very, very similar to Bitcoin ordinals. Hadera's consensus service features things like ABFT security, the 3.5 second finality, those incredibly low fees of $0.0001 per transaction, of course pegged in US dollars, low energy usage, high TPS and fair ordering. And then of course the ability to provide scalability as well as that security for massive applications going forward into the future. HC20 has two different modes for different needs, as mentioned, public and private modes. And of course, the operations are things like deploying, minting, burning, and transferring different points. 𝗟𝗚𝗡𝗏 CC has created a free open source desktop HCS20 app where you can create a topic ID, create the JSON for deploying, minting, transferring, burning. You can then submit that to a topic ID and then index topic IDs for validity of balances. HCS20 transactions are valid based on balance availability through consensus timestamp order indexing. In public mode, the payer account ID is required to match the from account for validation. And they've been testing that with various different things. So again, this is a massive move forward in terms of the different types of use cases and efficiencies that we can see on Hadera itself. Actually, 4 hours after that tweet and it went live, it was nearly 11.2 million HCS20 transactions took place with around 800 to 400 TPS on the particular topic ID. They're still working on an indexer, and at this rate, it's processing transactions at the same rate they're roughly being created. We're going to need a bigger boat for HCS20. Of course, this is something fantastic to see, and a big shout out to Patches for his continued sort of development and commitment to the Hadera ecosystem. Of course, this isn't his first venture on Hadera, and it's fantastic to see the infrastructure behind the scenes continuing to not only be built out, but sort of getting better and better every time we see something new come to fruition. This is something I'll be keeping a close eye on, particularly if we see more mainstream adoption going forward into the future. Recently on some of my other videos, I've seen a lot of different comments from people that have been watching for a while where I covered DeRec or decentralized recovery on Hadera, which of course is the brainchild of Lehman himself. And it's something that to be very, very excited about because again, it lowers the barriers to entry and reduces friction when it comes to mass crypto adoption. The whole idea effectively of decentralized recovery is a way in effectively its name to recover wallets in a decentralized manner that doesn't effectively compromise security or the privacy of the end user. So it's quite a lofty, ambitious goal to be said at least. Now, the update that we've seen currently is potentially, it looks like Hadera and Algorand have joined forces to form a DeRec Alliance, enabling mass market decentralized recovery. So entities from across the Hadera and Algorand's ecosystems, including the HBAR Foundation, as well as the Algorand Foundation, the Hashgraph Association, Swells Labs, and DLT Science Foundation, as well as industry partners, the Building Blocks and Bank Social, are all partnering together to develop a new interoperability recovery standard, which will dramatically simplify the recovery and adoption of crypto alongside other assets. As Web3 applications become mainstream, application providers want to make sure the experience is not only seamless, user-friendly, and simple enough to gain widespread adoption by millions worldwide, but also to ensure the experience requires high sophistication from the user is effectively reduced because currently they're having to take on the onerous task of securing their online secrets, such as digital assets, accounts, keys, and passwords. The idea behind the DeRec Alliance is to bring together the Web3 ecosystem to offer an open source industry standard methodology that makes digital asset recovery painless and secure across wallets. It was announced this morning at the industry leading conference CFC St. Moritz in Switzerland, where Lehman Bird, the co-founder of Hadera and co-CEO of Swells Labs, and John Woods, CTO of Algorand Foundation, spoke jointly on a morning panel on Layer 1 superpowers. The DeRec Alliance is a group of individuals and organizations committed to making the process of securing and recovering digital assets, accounts, passwords, and other secrets as simple as the existing Web2 experiences. That was said by Dr. Baird himself. We encourage every blockchain and every industry to work together to create the standards and the open source code needed to bring safety to the promise of Web3, but without the complexity. I'll leave this article link down in the description. Of course, like I said, if you go back on my channel, I have got a dedicated video looking at decentralized recovery, including Baird's initial vision for this. But it clearly looks like he's taking this one step further in helping to form the DeRec Alliance to push this forward. And again, I must say this is something that's very, very exciting for cryptocurrency. And again, almost revolutionary, as no one has attempted to take on something of such scale in the past, similar to almost how when Hadera was created to begin with. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, leave a like, drop a comment. If you've got something to say, I do try and respond to as many of them as I possibly can. Of course, if you're new here, you could always subscribe to be notified for my new videos once they release. I'll catch you in the next one, guys. Cheers.